Right. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So last week if we want to recap what has been covered last week, we covered already the introductions to the process modeling. So we will be covering both the steady state and the transient lump and distributed models. Okay, so we have discussed about what lump model is, what distributed model is. Okay, and then steady state, meaning that there will be no variations with time. And then also we have discussed about a little bit on the distributed model, but we will go into the details of this as we go later on into the respective weeks. And we have also give you a little bit of the examples on the how the process design is normally being done in the real situation. So you start with the whole overview of the mass balance. Then after that, then you go a little bit deeper into the systems. You start on figuring out the reaction. Okay, after the reactions, then you go into the separation. What are the main separation systems in your things? And then after that, then you figure out all the recycle systems, all the details, right? And then something related with the change of the pressure and temperature. Then after that, then finally you come into the possibility to heat integrate all the systems. Okay, but in discussing all those examples, we don't really go into the control of the systems, right? That control of the system is covered separately in the process control. So now this week, supposedly we talk about the development of the LAM model. So before we even try to solve the model, so we have two things, right? The modeling and the simulation. So modeling is basically you replace or you make the description of the system in terms of the mathematical models. So you make a mathematical equations, and that mathematical equation is based on the conservation principles to describe the behavior of the system, right? Then if you want to simulate the system, meaning simulate is basically finding out the behavior of the systems with regard to the input that you put in. So you can vary whatever the things that you want to see. You want to vary the time to, for example, for the transient systems, if you want to check the behavior of the system with respect to the time in terms of the concentrations or the temperature or what flow rate is, and that's called simulation. And then if you want to change certain variables or the parameter of the systems, that's also called the simulation. So simulation is related with solving the model. So there is two parts of the system. There is a modeling and there is a simulation, right? And each comes with the different assumptions. For example, if you want to go into a certain model that is easy to solve, then you don't necessarily have to solve you don't really have to go into something that assumptions that where you consider everything within that particular model. So if you relax the assumptions, meaning that you put more assumptions, then your model will normally be easy. But if you only put in a few assumptions, meaning that you almost consider everything, then that model may be difficult to be solved, right? So let us go into the last part of the slides that we covered. So we have covered everything basically. Our discussion covered something related with the continuous stir tank liquid container, right? If we have something that are easy, then we go into these two tank systems, and then we see that it can be represented in terms of the state space representation. Then if we take the accumulation term as 0, then the solution is trivial. Okay. So the next example that we have in here is so-called 6-plate adsorption column. So imagine that you have an adsorption column with 6 plates, which is used to absorb a chemical component in a vapor into the liquid. So the liquid L enters at the top and the vapor V enters at the bottom. Imagine that you have in here a 6-plate liquid, okay? And we took the number of the plate from the top of the column. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay? We took it from the top of the column just for the sake of the simplicity. Okay, so for each of the tray, we can have a general descriptions of the number. For example, this is tray I. So the liquid component that will come in will have a mole fraction of xi minus 1. Okay, because this is coming from whatever comes before the tray I will be I minus 1. Okay. Then whatever that goes down from the tray I, that comes from tray I, it will be denoted as xi. Okay. Likewise, you have the flow of the vapor that goes up on the opposite directions to the liquid, because liquid goes down, then the vapor goes up, right? So since we took the tray that are below this tray to be I plus 1, meaning the vapor component that goes down up to this tray 1, we can number it as yi plus 1, okay? Whereas the vapor that comes out from the tray I, that will be equal to yi, okay? So in here you can see that we take an assumption that the liquid and vapor flow rate through the column are constant. So even what we imply in here is that there is a mass transfer between the liquid and the vapor flow, but the mass transfer is quite small, such that the mass transfer is negligible relative to the total flow rate of the liquid or the total flow rate of the vapor. So then you will ask me, sir, why am I interested with the 6-plate absorption column? Because this is an ideal representation, the easiest that you can digest for the LAM model. For example, if you are asked to solve a particular problem, okay, so your exhaust emission is a vapor that contains certain concentrations of the sulfur oxide, okay. As an engineer, you have to comply with the environmental regulation, meaning that you have to make sure that whatever comes out from your plant, it does not have concentrations of the CO2 that are above a certain threshold. For example, in here, if your Y7 is equal to 20 mol%, so you have to scrub that sulfur oxide using a water, such that your vapor that comes out from this absorption column has a concentration that is lower than, for example, 2 mol% of SO2. Okay, so as a chemical engineer, you need to be able to design a system of the absorption column. For example, what is the mole fraction that I need to put in here in order for me to get in the vapor out that will carry a SO2 concentration that is less than the environmental regulation threshold allowed. Okay, and then you, for example, want to figure out what is the rate of the liquid in here that will allow me to do this kind of jobs. Okay, likewise, what will be the effect of the V and the L? Okay, and then what is the, if I put in X naught, for example, I want to reuse again the water that does not have a not a fresh water, but a water that basically contain an SO2 up to certain value. What can I put in here in order for me to be able to get the vapor that comes out with the SO2 concentration allowed by the environmental regulation? So that is something that you want to solve as a chemical engineer. This is where the modeling will have a significance. Okay, so I don't really go into the I don't. It's not the mathematical things, but it's the bigger picture that makes you understand as well why this is important. So we use an easy assumptions in here. So because remember that we have a 6-plate in here, meaning we have 6 of this particular steady state component mole balance. Okay, And then we assume that a linear equilibrium relation exists between the liquid and vapor composition. In reality, these things may only be valid only for a certain conditions, not for all conditions. But for the sake of understanding the model easily, then we simply take that this will be, we can have such relations that are valid for the model at hand. Okay, so what we do is simple. We just do it for component model balance for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so we follow this one. For example, if we do it for tray 1, then Lx, you put in I equal 1, so that will be x0. Okay, plus Vy, you put 1, so this will be Vy2. Okay, then don't forget that y2 can be expressed by this equation. So this will be equal to ax1 plus b, ax2 plus b, because that will be for 2, okay? Then lx1 plus vy1. Then you substitute all this y with x. So this one is coming from your thermodynamic relationship. This one is coming from your mass balance, or in this regard is a mole balance. Okay, so once you get this thing, you will have 6 equations. Okay, then you will ask me, sir, why you keep this y7 in here instead of changing it to x6? Because this y7 is what is given in the problem statement. So imagine if you have if you are in the real industry, then what you know, instead of the mole fractions of the liquid, what you know is the mole fractions of the particular component of interest in the vapor phase. Okay, and x0 is something that you also know as well, because that one is something that that is defined. Okay, that's why this one is not something that is of interest for us to know, but rather x1, x2, x3, x4, x5, and x6. Okay, everybody get it up to this point, yeah? I mean, I go a bit slow so that everybody can understand. So now you know that I will discuss this more on the next lecture, next week lecture. But you can see that we have 6 equations with 6 unknown variables. So 6 unknown variables is x1, x2, x3, x4, x5, x6, right? So if we have the same number of the equations with the same number of the variables that we want to solve, meaning we have a unique problem to be solved. So in this regard, because everything is given in terms of the linear form, so this one is a linear algebraic equation, then we can simply solve this one using matrix tools. Okay, in MATLAB we can easily solve this problem. We will discuss this more in next lecture. Okay, so that's basically giving you the model. So we have gone through the continuous stirred tank container. Okay, then another part of the things that we have covered, probably we will not cover these things in detail, but another thing will be the energy balances. So chemical components are generally transformed into other chemicals with energy changes. So total energy can be decomposed into different energy forms: thermal energy, mechanical energy, and electrical energy. Okay, so a general total energy balance will look like this. Okay, so in here we define that this one is the mass rate. This omega in here represents the mass rate of entering and exiting streams. U in here is the internal energy. K in here is the kinetic energy. P in here is the potential energy. Q is the heat entering and exiting the system. Okay, and then we also have QP, which is the heat produced in the system through reaction or phase change. We have W, shaft work done by the systems on the surroundings. We have a WPV, pressure volume work done by the system on the surrounding, and lastly we also have a mass of the system as well. Okay, so if we assume that in most cases, which is correct, the internal energy dominates the total energy, then the K and P terms can be neglected. So if we neglect that thing, we can simplify the previous equations in here to become these equations in here. Okay, then we can further simplify further. So this WPV will be equal to these things in here. Okay, as such, we can substitute this term with this term in here. Okay, Now, instead of using the internal energy, the quantity that are more easy to be measured in thermodynamics will be an enthalpy. Okay, so in this regard, the previous form of the equations can be changed in terms of the enthalpy. So that this is what we need to do if we decide to express that equation, that energy balance, in terms of the enthalpy. Okay, and we can simplify further if the change in the pressure volume can be neglected, such that we have these equations in here. Okay. Now we go into an example. So if we have a mixing tank with one inlet, a tank with constant volume has one inflow with the volumetric flow rate Q and an inflow temperature Tin. We took an assumption that there is a constant volume in the tank with the ideal mixing. That the enthalpy in the tank is equal everywhere and the outflow enthalpy is the same as the tank enthalpy. So we have a perfect mixing. The density is constant. So what we do in here? We took in is equal out plus accumulation. Again, even though I'm not giving the derivations of the unit in here, you want to check the lecture recording that I have given for the last year one, because I have derived everything. It is very important that you always check the consistency of the unit, such that the left hand side will be equal to the units on the right hand side. Okay, so if we do it like this, and then we assume that the density in, density out is equal rho, the flow rate in equal to the flow rate out equal to the Q, then we will be able to simplify this in terms of these equations in here. If we make another assumptions again, that the enthalpy is proportional to the difference between the temperature and the reference temperature, then we can take H as equal to this. Okay, so then we can simplify further and find the expression. So this one is the derivative of temperature in time as the functions of the time, as the functions of the temperature, and also the flow rate and the volume and the inlet temperature. Okay, so these final equations will only be obtained if the heat capacity CPM is almost constant. Okay, so the last topic that we want to cover on the development of the LAM model is the momentum balance, but we will not go into the details in here because this momentum balance is something that is covered in detail in transfer phenomena. So in transfer phenomena, you will come across the momentum transport, you will go into the heat transport, and then you will go also into the mass transport. Then you will ask me, why, sir, the conservation of the momentum is not important in the LAM model? Because it is normally unusual to have a moving LAM model. Okay, so normally what you have is that when you have a microscopic system, when you take a shell element, then you normally make a momentum balance over that shell element. Dynamic momentum balance are possible, but it's usually occur in mechanics. Okay, so if we just want to deal with the steady-state momentum balance, that is something that normally we call the force balances, and it's basically represented by these particular equations in here. Now, momentum balance, unlike the mass and energy balance, they have directions. So that's why momentum balance is generally the thing that we go into the transfer phenomena in detail, because you will deal with something related with the tensor. So the tensor will have two directions. Okay, so it's a little bit complicated, but not as complicated as you think if you put an effort into that momentum transport. I think some of you already passed my transfer phenomena. Probably you can ask Alvin, or you can ask who has passed my transfer phenomena. I think I'm not sure. What do you think of my transfer phenomena, Alvin? Daniel also, right? Daniel also have passed my transfer phenomena last semester, right? What do you think of transfer phenomena? Is it okay? Not so bad, or are you struggling with the transfer phenomena? So we will not go with the with the momentum balance in detail in the process modeling, because it's more important when we consider distributed model, and especially if you want to go into the computational fluid dynamics, this is something that will be very important. Okay, now before I go, I want to discuss about the about the MATLAB a little bit as well, introduction to the MATLAB. But before I go into that thing, one of you asked very good questions to me. I think that one is a bit late at night when I still working. Then you asked me about the question into the first slide of the week. Okay, so that questions was something along the mass balance that I make in here. Okay, so what I did is I have put into your week 1 introductions another additional materials in here, right? That basically shows how I did this mass balance equations. Okay, this mass balance. So you go back into here, and then in one of the video I describe something along this where should I go into that thing? Where I go into my you go into my week 1 slides, then there is one slide when I describe about how you get the overall mass balance. Okay, so there was a question, sir, what I got was not the same with what you get in here, because actually the way that I'm writing in here is not very specific. Okay, so the thing that I need to put in here is actually LB per LB mol. Okay, and then in here is LB per LB mol, because this 2.016 can be written in terms of the gram per gram mole or pound per pound mole. Okay, basically all the calculations in here are essentially given in terms of the British unit. Then these things probably will be confusing as to how did I know that this one is the gram mole or the pound mole. So that this is where I'm showing you the thing. So this one is the page. What is page? This is 46. Okay, so for those that are interested, you go into this book. I used this book in my undergrad. Okay, I still remember it up to these things, even though it's 20 years ago, 2 decades ago. I used to remember this textbook a lot because I always drill myself into this textbook. This one is I think the updated version made by Himmelblau and James Bierix. I'm not too sure if you are using this book for introductions or not, guys. Are you using this book for the introductions or not? Tiffany, you see, you use this book for introductions, your introductions or not? No? Okay. So you are using another book, isn't it? But when I did my undergrad in in the public uni in Indonesia, I used this book. So this one probably a bit new for you guys lah. Huh? Then I want you to go into page 46 for this book. You can find this book yourself on the LibGen. Okay, so in here you Felder, okay, Felder and Rosiao, okay. So this one you need to read again in here, okay. So Jason, you may want to pay attention on these things, again, because I don't want everybody to because the questions that you ask is a very good questions, okay. Now you look at here, a compound is composed of more than one atom, blah 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 blah. Okay, you read by yourself in here, blah 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 blah, and you can attach any unit of mass you desire to this weight. For example, H2 can be 2.016 gram per gram mole. Okay, 2.016 lb per lb mole, 2.016 ton per ton mole, and so on. So the most important thing in here is that we don't really have every mole that we put in there. It's actually having a specific unit of mole. Okay, so this 2.016 gram per gram mole, lb per lb mole, or ton per ton mole. So this is the thing that you need to understand. So you don't only deal with the gram mole only, but you can also deal with the pound mole, or you can also deal with the kilomole as well. Okay, so This things is coming back again into here. So depending on what unit that you are using. So if you are using an English unit, which is the LB, then you need to use LB per LB mol. Okay, so in here LB per LB mol. And then if you want to convert that pound mol into the gram mol, then of course you have to use the conversion system between the gram and the LB. And then eventually you use the molecular weight that are expressed in terms of the gram to gram mol. Okay, so that is a very good question that you guys need to understand, because when we are dealing with the mol, it does not mean that we are dealing with the gram mol only. Okay, so this is the thing that is important. You need to check the gram mol is mass in gram per molecular weight. The LB mol is the mass in LB per molecular weight. Mass in gram molecular weight per gram mol. Okay, mass in LB molecular weight per multiplied by LB mol. Okay, so everybody, the most important thing is to get everybody clear up to this point, so that you can be sure that I don't really make that what we did in here is something that are accurate. Otherwise, of course, if you don't really think that it is an accurate, then we need to make it sure that we are learning the correct thing. So this is always important, that we are always reflecting, go back into the textbook and make sure that we are doing the correct things. Okay, so does everybody get it up to this point? So very important that you go into this book again. Okay, if you want to cross-check this book again, the book is called Himmelblau-Rix, and this one is the basic principles and calculations in chemical engineering. I don't know about the Felder and Rousseau, I think, but in reality, sometimes the whole book, different textbook probably will have 80% of the same things being featured in for the same unit, but 20% of the way that they present things probably not going to be equal to each other. So in that respect, it's very important that you always ask that kind of questions that will give you more explanations, especially when it goes into a basic concept, guys. So I have also uploaded these things in here. I call it week 1 additional material, so you can access these things, okay, in your week 1. And we have given you descriptions of the project that you need to take. So for example, for the group 1, there's a project 45, for group 2 project 48, 40, 42, 66, 44, and 60. Okay, so for example, for project 45, how do you get that thing? So you go into the week 3, into the, where is this? This is go into the module 1. Okay, let me go into the student view, so to make sure that I have the same perspective with what you are showing in here. So you go into the week 3 activities. You can start downloading it from this one, instruction and rubrics. So project 1, you can open in here. Okay, you can see the descriptions of the project 1 in here. So for example, for the project number 45, that one is taken from the example 4.5 from reference 7. So reference 7 is which book? That one is the Dorfman Prodromos Dautidis. So these are the ones that are taken from this book. Let me check. Okay, this book. Okay, so that one is example 4.5. So this book are actually made by a quite authoritative guy in that particular area. So Dorfman get his he's a professor in University of Minnesota. Okay, and Dautidis is also a professor in the University of Minnesota. Okay, if I'm not wrong, either of them, one of them get a PhD from the MIT. So what we go is example 4.5. For example, you see in here. So this one is example 4.5 from reference. Where I go into 45, right? So example 45, that will be example 4.5 from reference 7. So this book has been shared with you. So what you need to do is you need to start looking into the example, into the right example. Example 45, for example. So example 45 in here is case study, liquid level dynamics and control. So this gives you a problem statement that you need to re-explain again in your project one. Okay, and everything that that has been given in here, we have giving it in for you in terms of the project. So if you open this one, right? If you open this one, I minimize this thing. You download this MATLAB code. You download this MATLAB code. For example, I download in here. Okay, I download. Save file. Right. After I download, what I get in here is this one. MATLAB code for distribution to 26 February zip. So I extract this thing, extract the MATLAB code for distribution. So you just pick which one that you are okay with. So these three have to be put into the same folder in your MATLAB online. And then you will run the whole code by running the driver. Because the way that MATLAB code is working is that this driver will call the other MATLAB files when they are needed to run this program. Okay, so that's what you need to do. So these are some of the examples that they show in here. So in here we have a three particular examples. So the first example is if we linearize that dynamic model. And the second one is if we non-linearize, if we just use the nonlinear model without simplifications. And then the third one is the case when we use a proportional controller to control that liquid level. Okay, so all these equations are being described in here, but you need to go with your group member and try to understand and derive all the mathematical models and how these things were simulated. So for example, in this particular problem in here, if we use a very high proportional controller value, then we will get a lower deviations. But this may not necessarily be a good approach for this particular control system. Okay, because in a particular case, if you use a proportional controller value that are too high, then it may affect the dynamic of the control system. Okay, so guys, these things you can just have a look by yourself. Okay, the grouping has been given in here. The project one report sample also being given in here as well. So these are one of the samples that I think will be that I think is quite good. Okay, so that you can see how he did that project one in here. Okay, so if there is no questions, then I will continue a little bit into the introductions of the MATLAB code. Okay, so this one is actually should be given in for example 9 slide 30. Example 9 slide 30. Okay, is this what you want? You see, is this what you mean? Well, even if you don't, then that will basically cancel each other, correct? Because you have this CPM T naught that basically this term will be this term will be what? Will be negative, right? Because this is negative. So CPM T naught, okay? And then you have this term. This is negative. This is negative. So it will be positive, right? As long as your T naught is not very far away from this, then this term in here will cancel with this term in here. You agree with me or not, UC? You can take T naught equals 0 for simplification, yes. But if me, I would rather not really taking that thing as a simplification, because anyway, if you differentiate a constant, then that will be 0, right? You agree with me, right? So that will basically be 0 in here. If that depends on these things in here. If this one is something that are this is a constant, right? Then this will be taken out of this derivative. Okay, but if this one is basically you differentiate something that is a constant, then that should be equal to 0 with respect to time, right? Yes, the answer is yes. You can put this one as equal to 0, but if me, I will just let that T not be there if they can cancel with each other. Does that answer your question, you see? Does that answer your questions or not? Okay. Now I want to go a little bit into the MATLAB because next week is going to be a bit cramped. Okay, so we have a lot of things to cover. So in here we can just go into a slower pace, and I know that you have to go for your tutorial at 2 o'clock, right? In E3 to 9, if not wrong, for process control, which later I will try to drop by as well to meet you face to face. So these are a little bit of good overview of the quick introduction to MATLAB that I give in the week 3 or week 2. I'm not sure. Okay. So what we will cover a little bit in this introduction is the MATLAB introduction, the MATLAB elements, loading, saving, plotting, MATLAB programming language, scripts, and functions. So MATLAB is a program for doing numerical computation. It was originally designed to solve linear algebra type problem using matrices, and MATLAB stands for Matrix Laboratory. So this is also a programming language that is currently widely used as a platform for developing tool for machine learning. Machine learning is something is a component within the artificial intelligence. Okay, I'm not going in detail into that thing, but basically that will train a computer or a certain systems to behave like a humans by automatically. Okay, so the MATLAB is useful for prototyping a project because it has a large toolbox of numeric or image library function. It is very useful for displaying or visualizing data. It is high level. It focuses on the algorithm structure, not on low level details. It allows quick prototype development of algorithm. So MATLAB is not a compiler, but MATLAB is an interpreter. So every time you have a code, it will basically translate the code one by one and execute it one by one. So after translate, execute. After translate, execute. After translate, execute. So it will not be as effective if you have a very long and repetitive coding as Fortran, for example. Fortran is basically you compile everything and then you use it as an executable file. Okay. This is a commercial product but widely used in industry and academia. We are talking about the early version of the MATLAB. So if you go into the current version of the MATLAB, then it will not be look like this, but it's almost the same like this. So you have this workspace that I showed you yesterday can be deleted using a clear command. And you have this common history, and you have a common window in here. Okay, so the main features is that you have a common window, common history, working memory, and working path. These are the data classifications that you have in here. Okay, you have a different types: logical, character, numeric, cell, structure, function, handle. The variables does not have to be previously declared. The variable names can contain up to 63 characters. Variable names must start with a letter followed by letters, digit, and underscores. Variable names are case sensitive. Okay, these are something that are special in MATLAB already. Okay, so they are already inside the MATLAB already, basically. And this one is the MATLAB assignment and operators. So if you want to assign A is equal to B, then you need to put in this thing, assignment symbol. You want to add, you want to subtract, you want to multiply, you want to divide, or you want to raise to a certain order. Okay. If you have a matrix, then this dot in here imply that you do it per element. Okay. Then MATLAB treats all variables as matrices. Okay, so vectors are special form of matrices. Scalars are matrices with only one row and one column. So these are the example. If you want to make a row vector, you can use just a simple comma, not a double comma, not the one with the dot on the comma. You put it like this into your MATLAB, you will get this. If you want to put in a column vectors, you need to use a special comma called the semicolons. This one is not the commas, or this one is called semicolons. If you put it like this, you will get this. Now, if you want to make it a 3 times 3 matrix, then you just put a comma, and then put the semicolons in here. Okay, you will get this. You can extract a submatrix by specifying the components that you want to extract on the brackets in here. So these are the examples. If you define the matrix and then you want to extract this particular column vector, that's what you need to do in here. So this these two double dots in here refers to the all rows. So all rows. Okay, in here the two in here refers to the second column. Okay, likewise you can do it also. You can for the row vector. So you for example this one is basically defining the row 2, the second row, because it start at 2 and stop at 2. So basically the second row in here, and all the column from 1 to 3. And these are all the column operators. How you gonna do with the accessing single matrix, concatenating in here, create matrix full with ones, create matrix full with zeros. So how many, for example, you want to put in? For example, if you want to put in 2 rows, 2 column in here, you put in 2 and 2. Okay, and everything. I would encourage you to try some of these these things into your MATLAB later on. Okay, I will not go into the details in here, but rather I will just have go to quickly. Plotting with MATLAB is something that are important as well. So in here, if you put in plotting time versus distributing, then whatever the variables in here will be plotted versus time. So this one is the x-axis value, this one is the y-axis value. So these are one of the example. So A in here is 1 to 100. So the A in here is basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on and so on. So you have 100 components of A. Okay. B in here is 100, double column 0.01, 101. So the vector B in here is 100, 100.01, 100.02, 100.03, and so on until 101. So the thing in here is basically the increment in here. Okay, and C in here is the same. So this one is the decrement. So you will have a component from 101, then 100, 99, 98, and so on until 1. After you do these things, then what you do is you define that D is basically consisting of A, B, and C. So as a result, you will have A 1 to 100, 1, 2, 3, blah, blah, blah until 100. Then again 100 to 100.01, 100.02, and so on until 101, followed by 101, 100, 199, and then 98. So this is what you see. This is 1 until 100, 100 until 101, 101 until 1. Because you repeat this by 5 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you see in here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so MATLAB is just doing whatever you put into the systems, and then this one is the same. This is the random number from 1 to 100, and then you plot x, y in here. So this basically just generate a random number. Now you can also put in the annotate. So x label, you label x, y label, the title also possible to put that thing. Okay, and then you also be able to extract the vector from the matrices. And this one is basically covering the programming language. So the thing that are good about the MATLAB is because you can incorporate the programming into the MATLAB. That's why you are able to basically do your project 1 in the process control using the MATLAB. So these are some of the elements. So if we use these expressions for the logic operations, this is what we need to do. And this one is basically not and or, and this one is some logical function. This will return 1 if any elements of x is non-zero. These things will be apparent in some of your programming in your project 1 to give you a taste of how MATLAB is solving the model for you. So how you can do your simulations with the MATLAB. So these are, for example, some of the conditional structure. For example, you are being asked to put in an A, and then you put in a B, and if A is equal B, then these things will be printed out. Okay, if A is higher than B, higher than 0, and B is higher than 0, then both positive. If not, then it will print other case. Okay, these are the other examples of the programming that you have from MATLAB as well that you can try, put into the MATLAB. Also can be done using a while as well. So as long as this condition is met, then the loop will be continued. Okay, and this one is basically saying that loop should be avoided when possible, because if you can just process this particular problem using a matrix, then it will be easier and quicker using this compared to this one. If you use this one, it can be, for example, being solved in 0.01 seconds. If you use this one, it may need to be solved using 1 second of the computational time. So if you add a lot of other computation in terms on top of these things in here, then it will become inefficient, because you will need a stronger computer to run that particular programming, okay, to achieve the same computation time. And in MATLAB files, we have an M files. Okay, so instead of typing it one by one in the command line, then we can save our comment in terms of the M files. And there are two kinds of the M files: scripts and functions. Scripts is something like this. A function is something that are more specific. So the name functions of whatever functions in here will be the name of that M file. And then you can have an input and an output. So meaning we can use another MATLAB file to provide the functions with the particular input to, and this particular input will generate us the output variables in here. Okay, these are the examples. So these are the input, these are the output in here. Help can be obtained directly in the MATLAB. So for example, if you have any particular comment that you don't know, then you can type a help followed by the particular comment. Then the MATLAB will show you. I'm happy to have to accompany you for your MATLAB questions when you have a particular problem. I think some of you have to go into the tutorial class, so I think I will just conclude my lecture for today. Okay, hopefully I can show up again a little bit late into your tutorial class to meet those of you that will come into the tutorial class. Okay, I stop my recording here.